The galaxy had grown quiet around the human colonies. For 3 standard years, the Terran Federation had maintained peaceful relations with the major alien powers, the proud Vorthan Empire, the ancient Kalari Republic, and the militant Nexus Coalition. Trade flowed freely through the junk gates, and diplomatic missions exchanged pleasantries across a dozen worlds. Dr. Emily Kane worked alone on Research Station Omega-7, a small scientific outpost orbiting the dead world of Kepler 442c. The station's mission was simple: study the unique gravitational anomalies that made this system unsuitable for colonization, but fascinating for theoretical physics. Emily had volunteered for the isolation posting, preferring the company of quantum equations to crowded Earth cities. The attack came without warning. 3 Nexus Coalition dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace, their weapon systems already charging. Emily barely had time to register the massive ships on her sensors before the first plasma barrage struck the station's shields. The research facility shuddered, emergency lights bathing the corridors in red. "This is Research Station Omega-7." Emily broadcast on all frequencies, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We are a civilian scientific facility. We pose no threat. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in heavily accented galactic standard. "Human. Your species has outlived its usefulness. The Coalition has voted. Humanity will be removed from the equation." Emily's blood ran cold. The Nexus Coalition represented 12 different species, all of whom had seemed cordial during recent peace negotiations. She thought of her sister on Mars, her parents on Luna Colony, the billions of humans scattered across 50 worlds. The station's shields collapsed under the sustained bombardment. Hull breaches began appearing across multiple decks. Emily ran through corridors filled with escaping atmosphere, reaching the communications array just as another blast rocked the station. Her fingers flew across the controls, encoding a simple message with her personal identification codes. "This is Dr. Emily Kane, human, Research Station Omega-7, under attack by Nexus Coalition forces. They say humanity will be removed. If anyone receives this, please." The communications array exploded in a shower of sparks. Emergency power failed, plunging Emily into darkness. She floated in the zero gravity, feeling the station slowly breaking apart around her. Through a cracked viewport, she could see the Nexus ships methodically destroying every piece of the facility. Emily activated her emergency beacon, a small, short-range device that would broadcast her identity and location for perhaps a few hours before its power cell died. It was useless at interstellar distances, but it was all she had left. She closed her eyes and thought about home, about the blue skies of Earth she would never see again. The beacon pulsed steadily in the darkness, sending out its tiny cry for help to the empty void. What Emily didn't know was that her original distress call had been received. The hyperspace communication burst had traveled faster than the Nexus ships could follow, reaching the hidden monitoring stations that humanity had quietly established throughout the galaxy. These stations, disguised as asteroid mining operations or scientific outposts, formed a network that the aliens had never suspected existed. Within minutes, Emily's message was decoded, authenticated, and forwarded through quantum entanglement communicators to every human world, every ship, every installation from the outer rim to the Sol system itself. The response was immediate and terrifying. On distant Earth, the Terran Fleet Command Center erupted into controlled chaos. Admiral Hayes, a veteran of the Proxima Wars, stood before the massive holographic display showing human territories. Red warning lights blinked across dozens of sectors as reports flooded in. The Nexus Coalition wasn't just attacking Emily's station. They were mobilizing for a coordinated strike against all human colonies. "Sir," reported Commander Torres, her face pale, were receiving similar distress calls from 17 human outposts along the rim. It's not random violence, this is systematic extermination. Hayes nodded grimly. He'd suspected something like this might come. Humanity's rapid expansion, their adaptability, their refusal to submit to the established galactic order, it had made them enemies. The older species had grown comfortable in their roles as the galaxy's rulers. Humanity represented change, and change was something they feared. The Admiral activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice carried to every human ship, station, and colony across known space. All human forces. This is Admiral Hayes. Condition red. The Nexus Coalition has declared war on humanity. They believe we will simply roll over and die quietly in the dark. They are about to learn why that assumption will cost them everything. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humanity's children were threatened. Asterisk. The alien species had made a critical miscalculation. For centuries, they had observed humanity through the lens of their own evolutionary paths. Species that had grown comfortable, complacent, satisfied with their place in a stable galactic order. They saw humans as just another young race to be tolerated, managed, and eventually absorbed into their established hierarchy. They had not understood that humanity was different. Dr. Emily Kane's emergency beacon continued its faint transmission as her broken research station drifted through space. The Nexus Coalition ships had departed, satisfied that they had eliminated another human outpost. But the beacon's signal, weak as it was, had been detected by something they never expected to find in the supposedly empty system. The UHCS Retribution decloaked silently, its adaptive camouflage systems disengaging to reveal a sleek, predatory hull bristling with weapon arrays. It was a Phantom-class stealth destroyer, one of dozens of ships that humanity had secretly deployed throughout the galaxy over the past decade. While the aliens had seen humans as peaceful traders and scientists, the Terran Federation had been quietly preparing for the war they knew would eventually come. Captain Lisa Park studied the debris field through her ship's sensors. The research station was a total loss, but her tactical officer had detected the faint life sign from the emergency pod that Emily had managed to reach in the station's final moments. "Retrieve the survivor," Park ordered, "and launch our reconnaissance drones. I want to know exactly which ships did this and where they've gone." As Emily was brought aboard the Retribution, barely conscious but alive, Captain Park was already receiving updates from across the galaxy. The news was grim. The Nexus Coalition had simultaneously struck at 47 human installations, killing thousands of civilians. Research stations, mining operations, diplomatic outposts, even a children's colony on the rim, none had been spared. But the Coalition had made their second critical error. They had assumed humanity's peaceful facade represented the entirety of human capability. On the hidden world of Sanctuary Prime, deep within an unnamed star system, the true scope of human preparation was revealed. The planet's surface appeared barren from orbit, but beneath the crust lay vast military complexes that had been under construction for 20 years. Factories churned out advanced warships, weapons that incorporated technology the aliens had never seen, and something far more dangerous: enhanced human soldiers who had volunteered to push the boundaries of what their species could become. General Marcus Stone stood in the primary command center, watching as status reports flooded in from across human space. He was a tall, scarred man whose cybernetic eye glowed softly in the dim light. Like many of the enhanced soldiers, he had voluntarily undergone procedures that the galaxy's other species would consider barbaric, but which gave humanity advantages their enemies couldn't imagine. "Sir," reported Colonel Hayes, the Admiral's daughter, who had followed her father into military service, "the first phase of Operation Prometheus is complete. Our stealth fleets are in position around every major Nexus world. The Coalition thinks they're hunting scattered human refugees, But they've actually triggered our primary defensive protocol. Stone nodded. Humanity had learned from history, from every war, every genocide, every attempt by one species to eliminate another. They had prepared for the day when their peaceful expansion would be seen as a threat requiring elimination. Execute Phase 2, Stone commanded. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be harmless. Across human space, the transformation began. Ships that had appeared to be simple cargo haulers and exploration vessels suddenly deployed weapon systems that dwarfed anything the established powers possessed. Colonies that seemed defenseless revealed planetary defense networks capable of destroying entire fleets. And from the hidden bases humanity had constructed in the void between stars, massive fleets began emerging from stealth. The aliens had seen humans as individual scientists like Emily, traders, diplomats, families trying to build new lives on distant worlds. They had not grasped that every human was connected to the others through bonds that ran deeper than species loyalty. When one human cried for help, all humanity heard that cry. The Vorthan Empire received the first indication that their assessment of humanity might have been incorrect when their primary naval base at Altair 7 simply vanished. One moment, it was there a massive orbital facility housing 50,000 personnel and 3 battle fleets. The next moment, there was nothing but expanding plasma, and debris. The Kalari Republic detected massive energy signatures appearing simultaneously around 17 of their core worlds, but their sensors couldn't identify the source. They sent scouts to investigate, and the scouts never returned. The Nexus Coalition, flush with their easy victory over human research stations, began receiving reports that their own colonies were under attack by ships that appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before effective response could be mounted. The galaxy's comfortable order was beginning to crack, and at the center of that fracture was humanity's response to a single distress call. Asterisk. The galactic community had always prided itself on understanding the balance of power. For thousands of years, the major species had carved up the galaxy between them, establishing territories, trade routes, and spheres of influence. Wars were ritualized affairs with clear rules and predictable outcomes. The strong survived, the weak were absorbed, and the galaxy remained stable. Humanity's arrival had initially been seen as a minor disruption, another young species that would either find their place in the existing order or be eliminated like so many others. The major powers had watched with mild interest as humans spread across the outer rim, establishing colonies and trade networks with impressive speed but seemingly limited military capability. They had been catastrophically wrong. Ambassador Thane of the Vorthan Empire stood in his species' highest council chamber, his forearms gesturing frantically as he tried to explain the impossible reports flooding in from across Vorthan space. The council members, each representing a different noble house, sat in stunned silence as the scale of the disaster became clear. 17 naval bases, Thane reported, his voice hoarse with disbelief. 17 major installations, each protected by full battle fleets, eliminated in coordinated strikes that lasted less than 6 minutes each. Our sensors detected no approaching ships. Our early warning networks gave no alerts. They simply appeared, struck, and vanished. Council leader Vex, whose family had ruled the Vorthan Empire for 3 centuries, leaned forward on his throne. You're telling us that the same humans who have spent 30 years bowing and scraping in diplomatic meetings, have somehow acquired the ability to destroy our most heavily defended positions without warning? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Thane replied. And it gets worse. Our intelligence networks have gone completely dark in human space. Every spy, every informant, every surveillance post, they're all gone. It's as if humanity knew exactly where each one was located, and eliminated them simultaneously. The truth was even more disturbing than the Vorthan ambassador realized. Humanity hadn't simply known where the alien spy networks were. They had been carefully monitoring and feeding false information to those networks for decades. Every human colony that appeared defenseless had been carefully staged. Every diplomatic concession that made humans seem weak had been calculated. Every trade agreement that gave aliens access to human space had been designed to map their intelligence capabilities. Dr. Emily Kane, now recovered and aboard the UHCS Retribution, was learning the scope of her species' deception as Captain Park briefed her in the ship's secure conference room. The walls displayed holographic maps of the galaxy, but these weren't the trade route maps Emily recognized from her civilian life. These showed military positions, supply lines, and the locations of massive human fleets that officially didn't exist. "I don't understand," Emily said, staring at a display showing human ships surrounding the Kalari homeworld. "When I left for the research station, our Navy was maybe 100 ships, mostly patrol vessels and transports. This shows thousands of vessels, weapons I've never seen, entire worlds I didn't know existed." Captain Park nodded. "The Terran Federation has two faces, Dr. Kane. The one we showed the galaxy peaceful, scientific, eager to trade and learn. And the one we kept hidden, the face of a species that learned from every war in our history and prepared for the day when our neighbors would inevitably try to eliminate us." Emily thought about her research, her work on gravitational anomalies. "My station? The research we were doing, was genuine," Park assured her. "But it was also part of our defensive planning. Every human scientist, trader, and diplomat in alien space was gathering intelligence while conducting their legitimate work. We've been mapping their capabilities, their weaknesses, their military doctrines for 3 decades. The scale of the revelation was staggering. While the galaxy's established powers had been playing by their ancient rules of diplomacy and limited warfare, humanity had been preparing for total war. Every human ship carried weapon systems decades ahead of alien technology. Every human colony possessed defensive capabilities that could destroy entire fleets. And behind it all was an industrial base hidden in the void between stars, producing war materials at a rate that dwarfed the combined output of all other species. The alien powers were beginning to grasp the magnitude of their miscalculation. The Nexus Coalition's leadership gathered in emergency session as reports arrived of their fleet being systematically hunted down by ships that seemed to appear from empty space. Their advanced sensors, their proud military traditions, their numerical advantages, none of it mattered against an enemy who had spent decades studying their every move while remaining completely hidden. Supreme Commander Crow of the Coalition paced before the strategic display, his reptilian features twisted with confusion and growing fear. "How is this possible? Our scouts reported human ships numbering in the hundreds, not the thousands we're seeing now. Their weapons technology appeared decades behind our own, not centuries ahead." His aide, a younger officer whose scales had gone pale with stress, offered the only explanation that made sense. "Sir, I believe humanity has been deliberately concealing their true capabilities. Everything we thought we knew about them, ... It was all carefully constructed deception. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their advanced technology or hidden fleets. It was their patience, the willingness to spend generations appearing weak while becoming strong, to endure insults and condescension while preparing for the moment when their true nature would be revealed. That moment had arrived when Emily Kane's distress call reached human space. Now the galaxy would discover what humanity really was beneath their peaceful facade. Asterisk, the galactic balance that had stood for millennia crumbled in a matter of days. Across known space, the established powers found themselves facing an enemy they had never truly understood, and the cost of their miscalculation was measured in the complete destruction of their military might, The Kalari Republic, oldest and most technologically advanced of the galaxy's civilizations, had always prided themselves on their superiority in warfare. Their ships were masterpieces of engineering, their crews trained in combat traditions spanning 10,000 years. When the first human fleet appeared in their space, the Kalari Admiral Corvex had actually laughed. That laughter died when the humans opened fire. The weapons that struck the Kalari fleet defied everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. Plasma beams that could melt through their strongest armor in seconds. Missiles that phased through shields as if they weren't there. And strangest of all, kinetic rounds that seemed to grow more powerful the longer they traveled, striking targets with the force of small stars. Admiral Corvex's flagship, the pride of the Kalari fleet, lasted 37 seconds. His final transmission, broadcast across Kalari space, consisted of 2 words: impossible, impossible, asterisk. But for humanity, none of it was impossible. It was simply the result of 3 decades of focused development while the galaxy slept. The humans had taken alien technology, reverse engineered it, improved it, and then built weapon systems that incorporated principles the older species had never even considered. General Marcus Stone stood aboard the UHCS Prometheus, humanity's first true dreadnought, watching through the tactical display as human forces systematically dismantled 3 different alien empires simultaneously. The ship's bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of quantum computers calculating firing solutions for targets across multiple star systems. Status report. Stone commanded. Colonel Hayes looked up from her console. Phase 3 is proceeding ahead of schedule, sir. The Vorthan Empire has lost 80% of their fleet capacity. The Kalari Republic is requesting a ceasefire through diplomatic channels. The Nexus Coalition. The coalition is fragmenting. Stone nodded. The coalition had always been the weakest link 12 different species held together by mutual fear of the established powers. Now that humanity had revealed itself as the apex predator, those species were abandoning their alliance and seeking separate peace agreements. And civilian casualties? Stone asked. Minimal, sir. As per your orders, we're focusing exclusively on military targets. No civilian installations have been struck. No population centers threatened. Our psychological warfare division reports that this restraint is having the intended effect. The alien populations are beginning to question why their governments attacked human civilians. First, that had been humanity's strategy from the beginning. They would demonstrate overwhelming military superiority while showing that they had no interest in genocide or conquest. The message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed entire worlds, but chose not to. The aliens, by contrast, had begun their campaign by murdering human civilians, including children. Dr. Emily Kane, now serving as a liaison between the military and civilian populations, watched the reports from her position aboard the Retribution. The ship had become a symbol of sorts, the vessel that had rescued her from the wreckage of humanity's innocence. News networks across human space were broadcasting her story, turning her into a reluctant icon of humanity's transformation from prey to predator. Doctor, Captain Park said, approaching Emily at the observation deck. We're receiving surrender requests from 17 different alien governments. They're asking for terms. Emily looked out at the stars, thinking about the research station where this had all begun. What kind of terms? Complete withdrawal from human space. Reparations for the families of those killed in their initial attacks. And formal recognition of humanity as a galactic power with full territorial rights. That's it. Emily asked. After everything they've done? Park smiled grimly. General Stone believes in making an example, not committing genocide. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity doesn't make war the way they do. We don't fight to rule or conquer. We fight to ensure our survival and to make certain this never happens again. The psychological impact of humanity's restraint was indeed profound. Across the galaxy, civilian populations were demanding answers from their leaders. How had they so catastrophically misjudged human capabilities? Why had they attacked first, targeting non-combatants? And perhaps most importantly, why had they awakened something that had been content to remain peaceful? The Vorthan council chambers echoed with angry voices as noble houses turned on each other, each blaming the others for the disaster. The Kalari Republic faced the first popular uprising in their recorded history, as their citizens questioned the wisdom of leaders who had led them into an unwinnable war. The Nexus Coalition simply dissolved, its member species scrambling to distance themselves from the failed military alliance. But humanity's victory came with its own costs. The mask of innocence could never be put back on. The galaxy now knew what humans were capable of when threatened, and that knowledge would color every future interaction. Some species would seek to become allies, hoping to benefit from human protection. Others would begin their own secret preparations, convinced that humanity would eventually come for them too. General Stone understood this as he reviewed casualty reports, minimal human losses, catastrophic alien defeats. The war was effectively over, but humanity's isolation in the galaxy had only just begun. Asterisk. 6 months after Dr. Emily Kane's distress call had echoed across the galaxy, the stars themselves seemed to have been rearranged. The old galactic order, stable for millennia, had been replaced by something unprecedented. A cosmos where humanity stood as the dominant military power. Despite occupying only a fraction of known space, Emily stood in the observation deck of Kepler Station, humanity's new diplomatic and research hub, built in the same system where her original station had been destroyed. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from a dozen different species waiting in orderly formation for permission to enter human space. Former enemies now came as supplicants, seeking trade agreements, defense pacts, and the technology that had made humanity's victory possible. Admiral Hayes, promoted after the successful campaign, joined Emily at the window. The old soldier looked tired but satisfied as he watched a Vorthan diplomatic vessel dock with the station under heavy escort. "Strange to think it all started with your research station," he said quietly. One distress call and the entire galaxy changed. Emily nodded, her reflection ghost-like in the window. "I keep wondering what would have happened if I hadn't managed to send that message. If the attack had been completely successful, then they would have moved on to the next target," Hayes replied. "Our intelligence suggests the Coalition planned to eliminate human settlements one by one, making each look like an accident or the result of local conflicts. They wanted to exterminate us, slowly, quietly, so the other powers wouldn't realize what was happening until it was too late." The scope of the planned genocide still took Emily's breath away. 17 billion humans scattered across 50 worlds, all marked for elimination by species that had smiled at them during diplomatic meetings and traded with them in seeming friendship. "Any word from the War Crimes Tribunal?" she asked. Hayes's expression darkened. "The Galactic Court is still debating whether to even hold trials. Most of the member species are terrified that we'll withdraw our protection if they prosecute our former enemies. They're learning that justice becomes complicated when the victims have bigger guns than the judges." That was humanity's greatest challenge now, not military threats, but the moral complexity of their new position. They had revealed themselves as the galaxy's apex predator, capable of destroying any enemy that threatened them. But with that power came the responsibility to decide what kind of galactic citizens they wanted to be. General Stone had addressed this question in his famous speech to the Terran Assembly, broadcast across human space and translated into hundreds of alien languages. "We did not seek this war, but we will not apologize for winning it. Humanity will defend itself and its allies with whatever force is necessary. But we will not become the monster that our enemies tried to paint us as. We will not rule through fear, conquer for the sake of conquest, or impose our will simply because we can. We will be strong enough to ensure our survival, and wise enough to remain worthy of that survival. The speech had been analyzed by xenopsychologists and political scientists across the galaxy, but its meaning was simple. Humanity would be the strong protector, not the cruel tyrant. They would maintain their overwhelming military advantage while using it primarily as a deterrent rather than a tool of expansion. The results were already visible. Former enemy species were requesting human protection from their own internal conflicts. Trade with human space had increased by 400% as alien governments sought access to human technology and resources. Most surprisingly, immigration requests from aliens wanting to live in human space had risen dramatically apparently. Many individuals across the galaxy found humanity's blend of strength and restraint appealing. Dr. King had been offered positions in the new galactic government, roles that would have made her one of the most powerful humans in known space. She had turned them all down, choosing instead to return to research, though her new laboratory was equipped with defensive systems that could have protected a small planet. "What are you working on now?" Hayes asked, gesturing toward the research complex visible through the window. Emily smiled for the first time in months. "Quantum communication arrays. We're developing technology that will let any human, anywhere in the galaxy, call for help instantly. No matter how remote, no matter how isolated, if they're in danger, we'll hear them." The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them. Humanity's rise to power had begun with one person's cry for help. Their new order would be built on ensuring that no human would ever have to face extinction alone again. As the two humans watched, a new ship approached the station, sleek, advanced, bearing the insignia of the Terran Federation, but designed with technology that incorporated the best innovations from across the galaxy. It represented humanity's future, no longer hiding their capabilities, no longer pretending to be less than they were, but also not becoming the cruel empire their enemies had feared.